Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Construction Project Management Principles. Today we're going to be talking about a few things. This is kind of our New Year's video edition, and we're going to be talking about, everybody always discusses New Year's resolutions, and usually it gets a pretty bad rap as far as, people not really following through with it. So I'm going to try to put it in such a way that I think that you'll be able to utilize these principles and better yourself over time. I've been keeping, I wouldn't call it New Year's, I would call it goal setting rituals for probably 20 plus years now, and I can actually go back to 1999, look at the goals that I had and see over time ones that I was able to achieve and ones that either became irrelevant or things changed such that it no longer made sense, that dropped off, or quite simply I wasn't successful at. I'm not always successful at goals that I set for myself, and I don't think anybody is. If there's anybody that tells you they are, I think they're maybe being a little bit overly optimistic in those cases. But for sure, there is a lot that we can do. And, in watching different people and reading different books on this topic too over the years, I think one thing that is very helpful is to conduct what we call a year-end review. I know Tim Ferriss has talked about it in his podcasts and blog, and others have as well. And I think that's very, very helpful, especially for you to understand where you're at and how things have been going for you. And so what is a year-end review? Well, one of the first things I would say is once you get into a rhythm of doing this, you have some sort of way of recording what's been happening in your life. And that really falls on, some sort of capture system that you have. And the capture system could be something digital, it could be something analog, written, but you need some sort of capture system that sort of captures how you were feeling at those moments and what you were actually doing, accomplishing, struggling with. And so usually for myself, I do an analog version, which is a journal. And so everybody has different kinds of documents that they use, but I use a journal. I write in it pretty much every day. I wouldn't say that I'm perfect with it. I go through streaks where it is every day, and then I have times like maybe over the holidays where I'm trying to chill a little bit, where I might not do as much, or when I do it, I do a lot of it. It's very helpful to capture that because now at the end of the year, you can go back to last January, because who can remember exactly what you're doing last January or last February? And you can sort of see, okay, well, yeah, I was doing that. Oh, it looks like I was stressing out about this. You can pick up certain patterns of things that stress you more than others. And that's giving you sort of clues and insights as to maybe there's something about you saying yes too much to things, maybe taking on projects that you think, they give you a sort of a real rush when you say yes, and then when you're in them, not so much. So that can give you sort of information as to, well, maybe I don't want to do as much of this, or maybe I want to do more of this. So you're looking for those kind of patterns and bits of information. Also, if you set goals, and I've talked about goals in a number of my other videos, SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. You have a commitment towards them, and how do systems tie into them. This is a very complex area. One of the failings of goals is that, you think that you plan this thing and it's going to go exactly the way you plan, and it doesn't, and then you kind of look at it and you quit. Your goal could be that you want to lose 30 pounds by the end of April or something, and then comes the end of April and you've lost 5 pounds and you're really upset with yourself, and then you quit altogether. So didn't happen the way you thought it would. So you have to look at that, where some of the weaknesses are in goals, and then look at where the strengths are. Well, the strength is you got to have some direction. You got to, where am I trying to go? What am I trying to do? This could be in the area of education, being a professor of construction management, right? Like, I don't think I'd have any students if at some point they didn't get a goal that they want to get into the construction sector, and this 4-year degree that they're working on is taking them down that path that's going to give them the skills that they can start out in this particular sector, right? So there's got to be something that took them in this direction. Now, do they know everything that they're going to have to do day to day and all of that stuff yet? No, because there's like an infinite amount of things and ways and means of getting there. So that's where goals usually gets the bad rap is, well, what's the point of planning it if you're going to do it differently anyways? But you need a direction. You definitely need a direction, but you do have to understand that the plan will change, right? It will change. Construction management. We need to have a plan of how we're going to go about building this building. We need to identify long lead items. We need to do the buyouts and procurements for all of our trades. We have to have these discussions with the suppliers. If we have the long lead items lined up and ordered ahead of time, we've got a reasonable expectation that when it comes close to when we need it, we're going to be able to get it. If we don't do those things, it's not going to for sure work. But just because we do those things, is it going to go exactly the way we plan? No. One of our trades is probably going to go bankrupt. The client's probably going to make a number of changes and all of those things. So that's the other thing. I think with goals, you have to be a little bit careful about being too rigid with the plan. I think that makes you, if you get too much rigidity with you must do this way. This is the same thing with systems. If you get too rigid that we must do this way, we have this habit of doing things, which habits are very good in the right context, right? But if you need to change something, you need to be flexible, right? You don't want to be fragile that you can't change. You know, in order to do this, I have to have the temperature this much, the lighting here, I have to have a window in front of me, I have to have coffee with exactly these ingredients. It has to be, you know, you put all these constraints around you, then you can't get anything done. So you want to understand what the constraints are. You want to have as few constraints as possible. And then for the ones that you're dealing with, you want to be able to look at, well, how can you mitigate those constraints ahead of time? So, you know, some of you may be trying to advance your education in construction or whatever that may be. And maybe you've got young kids. And so that's a constraint in a way because, you know, you want to spend time with your kids. So what can you do? Can you get up earlier? Can you work later? Is there a period where you can get a couple of hours where your better half looks after the kids, etc.? So you're looking at those kind of things, and you're actually making an effort towards setting up the conditions so you can get things done that you need to have. Otherwise, yeah, goals will fail. Resolutions will fail. So you got to look at what are these things with you. And that's where it's helpful, again, to do a year-end review because you had all these things you wanted to do last year. What things were you able to do? And what things weren't you able to do? And why weren't you able to do that, right? So, you know, it really looks at where did you spend also a lot of your time and energy. And that's where you get really good at sort of taking notes and inputting into a journal because it doesn't have to be big and long, but if you kind of get a vibe for trends and patterns that are occurring, then you can see positive trends and negative trends that occur, and how does that work best for you. And you know, you also get a chance to look at, well, what were some of your major accomplishments that you felt that went really good last year? Because you will have them, and you just got to identify it. And some of them, unfortunately, you forget because you didn't write it down, you have no capture system, and so it's kind of gone, right? Or you can't pull it exactly where you want it. But if you have some sort of capture system, you can sort of pull that stuff out of it. And of course, you know, as I said, if you understand what you struggled with, what gave you stress, then you can use other tools we've talked about in this course, lean construction, you know, in these videos, 5 whys, trying to do root cause analysis. Well, why did I struggle with that? Because of this. But why? And you keep going down the path till you get to the root cause. And then you say, okay, so that's the root cause. Going forward, what could I do to make this better, right? Like what system could I put in place? This is where we get into the next phase, is really forward planning, but understanding where you are, what got you here, and also pulling out too, because we never think about these things. We have them, but we don't think about them. What satisfied you intrinsically? Like when you were doing it, when were you in a state of flow? When did you enjoy things? So we do tend to remember a little bit better things that stressed us. But then again, if we don't actually do a review, we kind of forget them, or it's just down there, and then we go through the same thing because it becomes a habit of saying yes perhaps to projects that aren't your thing, and not being able to say no. These are all things that can sort of get you into corners. So understanding from the year-end review what you accomplished, what were some of the positives about the past year that you were able to deal with and accomplish, and what did you struggle with? Really getting into that aids you in your future planning. You might want to break your future planning into areas. And I've got that crystal ball up above me, right? Nobody has a perfect crystal ball, right? Nobody has a perfect crystal ball, but you are trying to set a course. You are trying to set a direction for what you are trying to accomplish. And if you're just kind of just going through things, then you're reacting a lot more. And in construction related industry, if we're reacting to things, we're usually not at our best. And we're usually stressed out much more so. So this is an opportunity for future planning. Now, you may own a business, so then that will include a lot of things, developing your business plan and the goals and the strategy. And then when you're in it, you're going to be having a lot of tactics. Tactics are the things that are changing, that you are reacting to and you are adjusting to, because you will have to do that. And you may be adjusting your direction, and you may reset some of your goals based on things like pandemic, a few years back when that hit. That changed a lot of plans for sure. And supply chain issues, interest rates. These are all things. These are not new. This is how the world works, right? So we definitely want to be. And I've recently been reading the book Anti-Fragile. I can't say that I agree with everything, but there's a lot of things in it that I do sort of agree to. And one of the examples is in construction too. We are in a business where there's limits to how much profit you can make on any one project, right? There's no limits to how much you can be over budget, how much extra time you can take, right? So we are in somewhat of a fragile business. We have to look at how can we build systems that will make us more robust and resistant to some of the fragilities that we deal with every day in construction. And so developing goals with those types of constraints that we deal with in mind, limitation to how much profit, different things like that, that can be very, very helpful. And you notice I've got learning and development. So again, this is the start of the year. If you're an individual and, business, I don't own a business, I just work in a business. Okay, so then you should be looking at learning and development. If you don't put that into your plan, how are you going to be able to improve? And continuous improvement is what it's all about, right? So that's got to be right there front and center. Learning and development. How can you better yourself? How can you improve over the next year? It might go out 5 years, like I said, if it's like a degree program or some major certification that you're after, it might go out more than a single year. And that's fine. And of course, financial. That would be another one. Now, some things are outside your control, like I said. So that's where it's got to be a little bit careful. But that doesn't mean you still can't set some goals and priorities. You can look at things. If you're a business, you can certainly look at things like profit margins. You can look at things like how well certain factors and ratios that you can look at, like, what percentage of your projects were on time? How much were they over time? What was the root causes of this? Is there anything we can do to make improvements in this? And can we set new targets that are reasonable, that we can actually drive towards? Of course, personal, well, you're probably not going to achieve any of the business ones if you're not really healthy. That's the other thing. So if you're stuck in a desk all day long and you're not moving around, that can be problematic. So you got to start looking at, this is where we build in processes and systems to try to make that more robust. We want to build in good habits into our processes and systems. On the personal side, I've got a list here of that I've said I've had my goals for the last 20 plus years, and I can go back and I can look at the ones from the last year, and there, I can even, I don't know if I've got it here, probably somewhere in here. Yeah, there you go. So I tried this, the habit tracking, when you try to institute new habits, and it's like don't break the chain, as Jerry Seinfeld said when he was asked, how are you so successful? And he said he wrote jokes every single day. And so once he did that, he could put an X on the calendar. And the idea is you don't break the chain. It actually was very effective on a lot of things. It's not everything, some things, like from the exercise side, I wanted to do rowing every day. It's a rowing machine behind me. I kind of missed on that one a lot. The other one was my piano playing. I kind of missed on that one at a certain point. And there were I can look at that and I can say, well, why? What were some of the reasons and causes for that? And what can I do to reinstitute that and make it more robust? So those are things that can be helpful that way, is looking at it. You got really good information. You can see what was going on, and you can then analyze it and look towards, maybe it's something that you don't care about anymore, and that's not part of one of your goals. So definitely on the health side, on the development, fun and hobbies. And if it's longer range goals, like by the end of the year, we want to accomplish this, well, then work them backwards. What do we do in construction? We develop a plan schedule for the project. But we don't always just look at the high level. That's not going to do much for us. We break it down. We usually break it down to like milestone. What's in the next milestone, 3-4 months? What's in the next 6 weeks? What's in the next week? And then it gets down to what are we doing today to move us in that general direction to accomplish that goal. And we also have to look at, with our goals that we create, what's within our control, right? That's the thing with the financial side. There's certain elements that are outside that. But within our control, what is it that we can actually do? And again, you've got that really good information. And goals, you'll hear a lot of, if you hear negative stuff about goals, it's usually because things are going to change. And also, from a personal satisfaction point of view, a happiness point of view, you're not so happy and satisfied with that. And, because it's just very extrinsic. You reach it, and then now what? And you kind of have this letdown. It's euphoric when you get there, but then it's a quick letdown. As opposed to, that's where the year-end review comes in. What gave us really good process, and what gave us satisfaction in doing things? And that's very, very helpful. So, as I said, this is really good for you to get into this sort of mindset. Spend a few hours on this every year. Evaluate as you move through it. Identify constraints. And it's a positive process. Will you meet them all? No. And you don't beat yourself up over it either. But if it's in your mind and basically you have a good understanding of where you want to go, the likelihood of you achieving it is much higher than just not doing anything. You don't even know what you missed out on when you don't do anything, really. And it's just kind of like you're thinking I'm lucky. Well, you can also look at luck like it's the intersection of preparation and opportunity. You're prepared and the opportunity's there, and it's an alignment with where you want to go towards your goals. And that's when there's magic things that happen. So I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful year coming forward. And one of my goals is to post weekly. So click the subscription and the notifications icon, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now, and have a wonderful year.